Hi everyone, I'm here to talk to you about some wonderful dolls that I've been working with for the past few months, and I just think they're such exceptional dolls. Some of them, perhaps I'm using the word one of a kind would be a little strong, but definitely unique, and the type of dolls that really don't pass your way very often. I'm beginning today with the cover doll from our catalog, The Voyage Continues. We chose that cover, that title for that catalog, because for several things. Well, number one, many of the items that we have in that auction are dolls with original trousseaus, trunks, clothes, things that belonged to the child who originally owned the doll and have stayed with that doll ever since. And I'm going to begin with this with our cover doll from the catalog, The Voyage Continues. And that cover doll is a beautiful doll by the Hooray firm. Now, when you think of the Hooray firm, you very often will think of the poupée rather than Bébés. Rather than the child doll, you think of the taller woman doll. That's a little complicated too, and we'll talk about that at another time. But at some point, about 1877, 1878, for a very specific time, Hooray introduced their child doll. And this particular model is extremely rare because this model was made for only 1 or 2 years only. That's why we put her on the cover. She's extraordinarily rare. She's just absolutely gorgeous. Everything about her is wonderful. Her body is made of the gutta percha, which was the original body material made on the Hooray poupée. Very, very unique in that Adelaide Hooray designed this because she felt she could have wonderful articulation. It was a very luxury product, very, very expensive at the time to be able to access this and to make it into a doll. Now, when she did her poupée, her Hooray poupée, she had these wonderful articulated limbs, shoulders, elbows, hips, legs. And when she continued into the Bébé Hooray, she did that also. The gutta percha Bébé Hooray was made for only 1 or 2 years only, about 1877, 1878, and with one special feature that is so extraordinary, these beautiful bisque hands, absolutely gorgeous bisque hands. And to find it in such wonderfully preserved condition with the original stamp of Hooray on the chest and that wonderful face, the very traditional light bulb neck. So I was cataloging this doll and I was so thrilled because I knew the provenance of it. It had come from a family in the Loire Valley of France from the 1800s, about 1880 again. And it had belonged to a very, very privileged little girl at that time. And you'll see when I show her costumes how that is such. The family also had residence in Paris. And this doll was uncovered within the past 6 months in the 16th arrondissement in Paris, in the home that they held there. I begged my person who presented this doll to me to please, can we have the name of the family, because we try to keep provenance together. And they said no, the family insisted they not be known. They wanted privacy, and so all I can tell you is from the Loire Valley and their 16th arrondissement in Paris, this doll has been preserved in her original trunk for, let me do the math now, what would it be? Almost 140 years. That's just absolutely extraordinary, and to find it in this condition. One of the things I was so happy when I was cataloging the doll was I looked at this dress and I went back through our past catalogs to see if I would find a comparable doll. We've only ever sold one doll of this similar nature, the Hooray Bébé, the gutta percha body, the bisque hands, made in that very limited time. So that, knowing that tells you right there how really rare this doll is. And then I was so excited because I found that the one that we had sold before was wearing virtually the same dress with a few little detail of decorations that were different, but clearly indicating to me that this was an original Hooray dress. So that made it very, very special as well. And I'm going to turn it around so you can see. I know that's what most of you come to tune into these videos to see. You want to see the all-around views of the dolls as well. Wonderful detail of the costuming, her beautiful shoes. And then she has these other additional costumes that I'm going to show you. Her light little pinafore dress. I'm always kind of been a fan of this tiny plaid, tiny check, with the wonderful detail of the scalloped edge embroidery around, all around, on the collar and on the hem. And then the cartridge gathering here at the dropped waist. It's wonderful. I saw this coat and I said, what is this fabric made of? And I found a description of it, and it is called Velour à Brandenburg. I have no idea what that means. It evidently was the name of a fabric at that time, but I'm wishing that you could be feeling it. Of course, if 1,000 people felt this fabric, there wouldn't be much left to it. So trust me when I tell you, it is the most lavish, soft material in the world, velour of Luxembourg, so a very, Brandenburg rather, so a very, very luxury, expensive product of the time, a very rich, like a silk velvet, and has matching with the coat, the little muff with a bow on it. And actually there are 2 of these hats. I don't know why, I guess they thought she might lose one blowing away, but her little matching almost toque type of hat. Beautiful piece. We pictured her on the cover of the catalog wearing her white summer dress because it was really just so precious, and it showed off her bisque hands so beautifully. And it has the little blue bows on the top. It has fine lace work, again, on the dropped waist. And then it has lace work down the bottom and little sleevelets that you would wear as a child or as a doll. You would wear with Sue sleeves. And Sue sleeves, what a great invention that was. Think about it. When you wear a white blouse and you get your cuffs dirty all the time, that's the first thing that gets dirty. Sue sleeves are great. You pin them to the blouse, and then all you have to wash are the Sue sleeves, the undersleeves, not the whole blouse. Great invention, something that fashion should pick up today. And then the trunk with all of these wonderful accessories, the parasol, piece after piece of undergarments. This is a really beautiful blue velvet jacket with sleeves. I imagine there must have been a matching skirt at one point, which no longer exists. Every child, even then, probably wore things out. Leggings, wonderful brown leggings to match the velour coat. Another beautiful bonnet, very, very similar to the one she is wearing, a Sunday best bonnet. And it just goes on and on. Here's a beautiful little lace cap that she can wear with this white dress, and all sorts of underwear. We have a beautiful little coat over here in corduroy, which I love because corduroy was the fabric of the king. And corduroy, what does that become today? Corduroy. Everyone thinks that's a modern fabric. Not a modern fabric at all. Dated back well into the 1800s. And a beautiful double-breasted coat here of this type. So just a wonderful doll for someone looking for a doll that very, very few people in the world will ever have one. This is the doll for you to have. An extraordinary, rare doll, and in condition is just so beautiful. So let's go on and look at some of the other Bébés in the auction. Bébé Hooray is not alone in her residence, waiting to go on continuing her voyage. We have other superb French dolls, and what is the characteristic you're seeing of most of these? Tiny. This is so rare. Collectors strive to find these tiny dolls, and they are becoming harder and harder to find. I did a book once, I called it, on the little dolls, I called it In the Palm of the Hand. And I try to imagine that this is how it must have been for a child. Just as today, children collect and play with little dolls, dolls that fit their small little hands and that they are able to have a real communication with because they are scaled to their size. The little dolls at the time were just wonderfully made, and they are so incredibly rare. I want to start with showing you, I'm just going to ramble along this table and show you different things, and I want to show you this doll, which is absolutely an extraordinary, tiny, tiny, early Jumeau. And she is so original. Look at the mark, look at her shoes. They are just wonderful. Look at her dress and watch. When I tuck this up, I'm going to show you something you may never have seen before. You see that blue silk banner with the Jumeau name on it? And by the way, underneath it you can see her layers of original Jumeau undergarments. This little doll is so original. Now what that is on the label on her dress, about the same time these were coming out, this is not her box, but I wanted to show you the label. Jumeau started putting on the inside of the boxes, look for the identification on my doll with a little blue silk banner on the underskirt. And he has that in French. That didn't last very long. He went on afterward to put silk banners on the sleeves of his dolls, and then he stopped doing banners, silk banners at all, because the dolls were so carefully marked. And while it's so wonderful to find a doll that's totally original, it makes me so happy. I mean, because you think about this again now, we're going on to 140 years ago. This is such a long time. Can you imagine a doll being made today that you're buying for your child in a store, and then they take it home and play with it? 140 years from now, will it be as perfect, as fresh? No, there'll be very, very few of those. That's why these dolls are so extraordinary to find them. And to top it off, look at the face, because that's what everyone looks at. In the palm of the hand, indeed, you could own this doll and hold it in the palm of your hand and never tire of it. It's that precious. We have other little wonderful dolls here. The little Brew is one of my favorites. She is absolutely gorgeous. She has her original shoes, her original signed shoes, and she has her original costume, and I want to turn it around and show it to you so you can see it all the way around. Beautiful bisque hands, very delicate. Her original jewelry, the turquoise, just really accentuates her face. And when we showed this in the catalog, and unfortunately I'm showing these to you completely dressed, so I can't show you all of these details, but she is a size 4/0, and her undergarments are also marked 4/0, which is really important. And now let's show you some other wonderful early tiny dolls from this auction. We have a beautiful Theriault, which she has her wonderful original costume and her little shoes. Beautiful blue paperweight eyes. Let me turn her around so you can see the back of her dress as well. Little flouncy bows, and look at the back of that bonnet. It is absolutely wonderful. And then we move along. This is a rare maker. You find very few dolls by this maker. This is the Falk Roussel doll. Very, very different type of face. Almost a highly characterized face. Little grin, little troublemaker there. Almost a character face, but so precious. Hard to find in any size at all, and to find it in this tiny size is really extraordinary. And I want you to see it from the back as well. Wonderful costume, wonderful original silk costume from the French couturiers of the time. This is a very superb, this is the doll that this box goes to that I showed you earlier. And it is a very, very fine early doll with the lamb's wool wig and the original comb that Jumeau put on the heads of the dolls. And she has her very, very simple but original dress and her wonderful original shoes. Beautiful doll. And when I spin it around the front again, I want you to take a look at her eyes, because they are a version of what collectors refer to as the wraparound eyes, which is really a way of saying that the eyes are extraordinarily big and dramatic and just make a beautiful face. Wonderful, wonderful bisque on these. Sometimes the earlier Bébés have I don't know what the word is. I would say almost like apprentice painting and training of the features. The eye sockets are not cut evenly. This is not a flaw in the doll. It's just a sign of the doll being made at an early time, and frankly, from my point of view, makes them very, very enchanting. I think this doll does not suffer from that. She suffers from gorgeous bisque and beautiful painting all the way around. A very rare early Steiner model. And you can see that she is so perfect, and look at this tiny size. I think she's 8 inches tall. That is so tiny. I'm standing next to it. Here's my hand, and my hand's pretty small too, actually. And it's just, she's wonderful. Let's turn her around. You can see her all the way around. And when she comes back and you see her face again, look at those beautiful eyes. You think, I seem to have a fixation on eyes here again, but I think beautiful eyes really make the doll. Here's the top of her bonnet, which you might not have been able to see. We have here, again, a very, very beautiful doll. In this case, again, one of the earlier Jumeau models being made, and again, with a very simple, in the earlier days, Jumeau made these very simple dresses. They weren't the very silk, lush, lavish dresses of the mid-1880s. This doll would date from about 1878, and they were wearing much simpler dresses with beautiful luxury fabrics, but not dramatic fabrics. And let's turn her around so you can see her costume all the way around. And then I want to show you her shoes also, because they are the marked Bébés Jumeau shoes. And not only is it wonderful to find that early mark on them, but what color are those shoes? Aqua kid skin to match her dress. That just doesn't happen. That's just wonderful. As the years went on, Jumeau became much more uniform in the production of his shoes, and it's a great luxury to find signed Jumeau shoes in the brown leather, but when you can find them in colors and they're signed, wow, that's incalculable, that treasure. Here is another wonderful early Jumeau, again wearing her beautiful simple little dress. These colors, and look at the colors of all of these dolls, by the way, of their costumes. These were the classic costume colors of the period, ranging from a soft coral pink to ivory to aqua to blue. These were the colors that were in favor and were done. And now we have come to another gorgeous brew, a brew from the classic period, and talk about a dreamy look on a face. This is just wonderful. We had the earlier brew right here. I'll put the two sisters side by side. We had a brown-eyed and a blue-eyed, both from different time periods of brew, but I don't know, how do you choose? I can't say which is better than the other. They're both just equally lovely. And we'll turn her around so you can see her costume all the way around. I think one of the things about the video that you should kind of pay attention to, because it gives you a perspective that you don't have otherwise, and perspective is the right word. You can see the dolls in the size scale that they are. When you're looking at our catalogs we produce, I always, at every auction, people will come in and they'll say to me, oh, I didn't realize it was that big, or oh, I didn't realize it was that small. And so when you see them here in relation to each other, this is a really good piece of information that's kind of going into your brain that you're probably not even aware of. And then two, what I would call medium-sized of the early Jumeaus in gorgeous, gorgeous early costumes, wonderful faces, very, very pale. One a blue-eyed, one a brown-eyed. And let me turn them around so you can see their wonderful costumes all the way around. This one has, I love the combination of the white piqué, which is, of course, if you listen to me enough, you know is one of my favorite of the fabrics. The white piqué, the soutache embroidery, and then just for a little accent, the wonderful ivory silk file bow on the back. And look at the detail of that bonnet with the cut work around the top. It's extraordinary. And then her sister, right here, beautiful. I'm going to hold this up so you can see the top of the bonnet. Look at that detail on the bonnet. And then just two other dolls to show you from this wonderful group of Bébés, of which this is only a very small sampling of what is in the Voyage Continues catalog. We have a beautiful early period bébé again, the gentle face bébé. This is like the brevet model, the very first model that Leon Casimir Bru did of his bébé. And she's wearing an all original costume, and she's just extraordinary. Beautiful hat on her. And let's just see if we can turn her around. And then you can see her that way. Bru was very funny. Bru was kind of a stubborn guy, and he wanted to continue making his bébés the same way he had made the poupées, or the lady dolls, and that was with the kid body. Meanwhile, into the French market was coming this newfangled body known as the composition, fully jointed body, which allowed for great articulation. Brew remains strong to his original idea, and that's why we do find with the kid bodies these beautiful bisque hands on the Brew dolls, and makes them very, very desirable to collectors. And finally, this doll, which I don't see why anyone would not want to just grab this doll and hold it forever. She is so stunning. This is a Schmidt. This is a Schmidt et Fils Bébé. And when I turn it around, I want you to look at the perfect shaping of that nose. We're going to catch this face in profile so you can see that. One of the things you should do in looking at your dolls is don't just always look at them face on. Dolls are kind of like people's faces, and there are different angles of them that bring a different perspective to the modeling of the doll. And while I think this doll is really stunning, when I turn her around and see the shape of the nose and then the shape of the chin and the big cheeks and how they fit in around the mouth, to me it's just an extraordinary piece of sculpture. And look at the costume she's wearing, and then tell me if that doll couldn't go home with you any day of the week.